Broncos country, welcome back. In today's video, we're going to be going over all of the Denver Broncos 2025 undrafted free agents and the additional players that the Broncos invited to their rookie minicamp, which should be taking place this upcoming weekend. Now, the rookie minicamp is to bring in all these players. Obviously, your drafted rookies, the undrafted rookies, and then a couple other players who you want to give an invite to honestly fill out the roster to make sure you have enough players for rookie minicamp to participate. So that way, all the rookies can get up to speed with all the playbooks and how everything works when the veterans arrive for mandatory minicamp in a few weeks. Now, if you do enjoy this video, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel, as the support is greatly appreciated. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, and let's get straight into this. So the first undrafted free agent that was signed by the Broncos is Clay Webb. And Clay Webb is a very interesting prospect because he's someone who I thought was going to go in the range of the 5th round, but goes undrafted, and the Broncos pick him up in undrafted free agency. And then a story does come out about a potential allegation. Not going to go over everything on here because it's A, alleged, and B, I don't have all the information, so I don't want to, post a video and then some of the information maybe isn't true or whatnot, and then, all that stuff happens. So if you're interested, go look it up. But there is a potential allegation that might have been the reason why he drops out of the draft. But Clay Webb is a very intriguing prospect because he's someone started at Georgia, didn't get a whole lot of playing time, then transfers to Jacksonville State, and he's an interior guy, can play guard or center, most likely going to play center at the next level. 6'3", 312 pounds, a little bit older of a rookie at 25 as he was a redshirt senior. But he's someone who I do like as a depth piece because right now, behind Luke Wattenberg and behind the guys for backup center, you have Alex Forsyth and you have Nick Gargiulo, two guys who were 7th round picks in the prior two drafts, not 2025, so 2024 and 23. So it's interesting to see what the Broncos are going to do there. But I do like Clay Webb, and I think he's an intriguing piece to be a backup and then maybe eventually can be a starter, a very physical offensive lineman, an explosive offensive lineman, someone who I think has a solid chance to make the active roster, if I'm being honest with you. He is one of a couple of these guys who the Broncos have signed as undrafted free agents who I do think has the potential to make the active roster. Clay Webb, and a very, very, very intriguing piece, and someone who I wouldn't mind the Broncos bringing in. Kind of, got to work on the character thing if that's true, but Clay Webb is someone who I am very intrigued by and would love for the Broncos to keep on the active roster. Next up, you have Xavier Truss, an offensive tackle from the University of Georgia. He is a 6th-year senior, but funny enough, he's only 23 years old. A big offensive lineman at 6'7". Again, you're bringing in these guys for competition. You're bringing in potential depth pieces. Now, I don't know where exactly Xavier Truss ranks in terms of the Broncos' depth tackles, right? You got Bulls, you got McGlinchey as the starters. Then you look at the backups. I really like Alex Palczewski as that swing tackle, right? A former undrafted free agent. I think it was 2 seasons ago. Then you also have Frank Crum, who I like as a UDFA from last year. And you also got Matt Pert, who you signed to a contract extension this offseason. So it's an uphill battle for sure, but Xavier Truss is a very intriguing prospect out of the University of Georgia. Then you got Marquez Cox here coming out of the University of Kentucky. Another intriguing prospect at 6'5", 305 pounds, a senior from Kentucky. Again, a lot of these guys, maybe you've heard of them, maybe you haven't, because these are guys who probably wouldn't have been drafted. Some of them maybe should have been drafted, like Clay Webb, but a lot of them, a lot of times are expected to go undrafted, so you don't put a whole lot of information into who these prospects are. But some more offensive line depth for the Denver Broncos. And then Joe Michalski out of Oklahoma State University. Of course, this is my alma mater. Born and raised in Colorado, went to Oklahoma State. And for me, Michalski is someone who I really like. Of course, for those of you who don't know Oklahoma State football, we retained our entire offensive line, brought them back as veterans, and then everyone really had a down year on that offensive line. So wasn't great for us, but he's 6'5", 305 pounds, a redshirt senior. So Mikulski is someone who I am intrigued by. He's someone who he'll snap the ball quick, or sorry, how do I phrase this? He'll snap the ball and then quickly get into blocking. So he kind of snaps the ball and then gets into his blocking motion quickly. And then he works his way to the next level, obviously on a run play, because don't want to have too many or an illegal man downfield. But he's going to work his way to the next level. And if he misses a block, and someone gets behind him, he is going to not put his head down. He is going to get to the next person, and he is going to start blocking someone else. So he's someone who has a high motor. He's going to play from whistle to whistle. Someone who is an intriguing piece, right? I think Clay Webb probably makes it over him, but as an Oklahoma State fan, as an Oklahoma State alumni, I would love for Joe Mikulski to make the Broncos roster, and maybe he makes the roster but on the practice squad. So we'll have to see there. Then moving on to Jawan Newton, the wide receiver out of Toledo, and this is another guy who I am very, very excited about. When I watched him, I noticed that he makes plays happen when he has the ball in his hands, right? He's going to use his speed. He's going to use his elusiveness to make players miss in the open field, and he is going to make a play when the ball is in his hands. I did, however, notice, at least in my opinion, he kind of had a limited route tree and wasn't the sharpest route runner. So that's something that I did notice that maybe he needs to improve on. But he can separate, and most of that separation does come from when he uses his speed. But he's an intriguing prospect out of Toledo who might make the roster. Maybe he makes it on the practice squad, but he's someone who I would watch out for in rookie minicamp and throughout training camp, honestly. I really like Jawan Newton as a potential separator for the Broncos at the wide receiver position. It just depends on how many receivers the Broncos are going to roster, because you assume they're going to obviously roster Cortland Sutton. Marvin Mims is going to be on the roster. You got Devon Vele, you got Trent Sherfield, you got Trent Sherfield, right, who is going to be mostly a special teamer, but you got Troy Franklin as well, who I still really like. Troy Franklin, I think he's got the high upside. Of course, you drafted Pat Bryant in the 3rd round, so is there a spot for Jawan Newton in the receiver room? Maybe, maybe not. You got to kind of remember Trent Sherfield, he's going to fill that Tremont Smith type of role as that special teamer, that extra returner, right? He's essentially a specialist, and he would be listed as a specialist, I guess, traditionally, if you didn't have to give him an exact position at wide receiver. So maybe just don't count him as a receiver, and then you could make room for Jawan Newton on the 53. But it's interesting. I really am intrigued by Jawan Newton. Him and Clay Webb right now, I think, are the two most likely to make the roster for the Broncos, and a potential 3rd one here later. But very intriguing prospect out of Toledo, in my opinion. 63 games, 2,942 yards, 14.3 yards per reception, average yards per reception, and 32 touchdowns in his collegiate career. Now, moving on, there is another receiver who, I'll be honest, I don't know a whole lot about him. Comes from a smaller college in North Carolina Central, but it's Joaquin Davis. 32 games, had 1,212 yards, averaged 13.1 yards per reception on 92 receptions for 12 touchdowns. Then another wide receiver who, I'll be honest, I don't know a whole lot about either. I'm going to keep it straightforward with you. But it's Courtney Jackson out of Arkansas State. You can see the stats here on the screen if you want to look more in depth. And then you got Jaden Robinson bringing in more secondary help. Now, I do think it is going to be a long shot for any undrafted free agents to make it on the roster in terms of the secondary, specifically the quarterback position with how our defense currently is, plus the draft, right? You got Pat Surtain, you got Jahdae Barron, you got Riley Moss, you got Jaquan McMillan, you got Chris Abrams-Drain, and then you got Damari Mathis. So I think it's going to be an uphill battle to even make the roster. Like, the 6 that I mentioned are probably the most likely to make it, and the Broncos might not keep all 6 of them. So it'll be hard, but Jaden Robinson out of Oregon State is an intriguing prospect. Didn't get an interception in his college career, but that's not necessarily a bad thing, right? When you're a good corner, teams typically don't throw your way, right? So if you get an interception, great, but for Pat Surtain, for example, a lot of teams don't throw in his direction, so he's not going to get many chances to pick it off. So the 0 interceptions isn't necessarily a bad thing, but Jaden Robinson is an undrafted free agent that the Broncos are bringing in for rookie minicamp. Same thing with Florida A&M's Kendall Bowler. You can see his stats here on the screen right now. Also, you probably noticed I don't have a games played. It is a little bit more difficult to track how many games the guys who didn't play in FBS recorded. And I wanted to get this video out for you, so I just wanted to throw that out there real quick. Then you got Joshua Pickett, another corner out of Duke, bringing in some more secondary help. I'm going to try and go over this quick because I don't want this to be a super long video. This is just an informative video to show you who the Broncos are bringing in. Then Kareem Reed, linebacker out of Utah, bringing in some linebacker help. And if I'm honest, I think the inside linebacker position might be one of the easier poachable jobs for the Broncos because outside of Dre Greenlaw, Alex Singleton, and I'd say Drew Sanders, I would say that fourth linebacking spot and beyond, if we keep more than 4, is up for grabs, really. You know, Justin Strnad was a solid veteran fill-in last year. Wasn't outstanding, but, you know, he got the job done. Then you got Lavelle Bailey, undrafted free agent from last year out of Fresno State. You got Kareem Reed here from Utah. And you also got J.B. Brown from Kansas, the former Bowling Green Star, transfers to Kansas, plays in all 55 games of his college career, and was a very productive linebacker in the NFL, in college football, both with Bowling Green and Kansas. And like I said, with how weak our inside linebacker position is currently, I do think either, you know, J.B. Brown, Lavelle Bailey, or even Kareem Reed, anyone could take a potential 4th linebacking spot from Justin Strnad. Now, Strnad does have the NFL experience, so maybe you keep him, maybe you keep an extra 5th linebacker on the roster, or you practice squad one of these guys. But I do think that the position of inside linebacker might be one of the most poachable for an undrafted free agent to make their way on to the roster. Might not get a whole lot of playing time on defense, but would definitely contribute in the special teams. Moving on, Johnny Walker, funny name, but an edge from Missouri. And I had a hard time finding the stats for Johnny Walker Jr. out of Missouri, but this kind of fits the mold with what Sean Payton wants to bring in. He is a captain with the Missouri Tigers and a high character guy. And that's kind of what I feel like the Broncos are going for. If they can manage, is a captain, a team leader, someone with high character as well. And Johnny Walker fits that edge. Christian Dowell, kind of same thing, went to a smaller school at the University of Tennessee Martin, or went to the, I can't remember exactly how to say it, University of Tennessee Martin, right? Because it's like you have CU Boulder, but then you also have, and you have like Colorado State up in Fort Collins, and then you have Colorado State in Pueblo, right? And there's different branches of the school. This is the University of Tennessee in Martin, Tennessee, right? Smaller school with the Skyhawks, but hey, another defensive lineman depth, and I'm not going to hate on defensive line and trenches depth because we saw how the Eagles won the Super Bowl last year. Not saying these guys are going to make an impact of the level of the Eagles Super Bowl roster, right? But you can never have too much help in the trenches. And then Christian Williams, another captain on that Missouri defensive line, high character guy for the Tigers, and you can see his stats on screen right here. Now moving on, these are all the rookie minicamp invitees. So these are players who aren't on the 90-man roster. The Broncos could obviously cut someone and sign them to the 90-man roster if they so choose. But these are guys who you're inviting to camp because you need extra bodies. You need players to come in and have enough to make the minicamp work, essentially. Here are the players. Quarterback Blake Sandstrom from Princeton did play 1 year at CU, fun fact. Then you got Max McLeod, a wide receiver up in Golden with the School of Mines. Chris Evans, who was with the Bengals last year, I believe. Aaron Young from Old Dominion. Travis Thieves from South Dakota. A tight end, wide receiver kind of hybrid. Mickey Harrison at San Diego State also played at CU, I believe. Gabe Clark from Central Missouri. Cameron Cooper from Lindenwood. Darius Washington from Florida State. Jack Wiley from Houston. Justin Mayers from CU Boulder, Colby Miller from the University of Miami, Ohio, Shane Cokes from CU, Zach Kennedy from UC Davis, Malaya Scipio from CSU Pueblo, Jordan Turner from Michigan State, Mikhail Sherman from Nebraska, Levante Bentley from Colorado, CJ Bakersville from Texas Tech, Henry Blackburn from Colorado State, Wyatt Eckler from the University of Wyoming, John Hoyland, kicker from Wyoming, and then Christian Johnstone from App State or Appalachian State. Now, I will say for these guys, John Hoyland, I do think is going to be brought in mostly to give Will Lutz some competition because he's most likely going to be the kicker this upcoming season, let's be honest. But competition is never a bad thing, so I do think John Hoyland will be doing that. Christian Johnstone, don't think he makes the roster considering you signed Mitchell Fraboni to a 3-year contract extension. Now, maybe Johnstone is a practice squad guy, and you have a long snapper potentially for the future, but 3 years down the road, you could probably find another guy at that point. So we'll have to see what happens with him. Then you got all these other guys. I'm not going to go too in depth with them. This is just a kind of informative video to show you who's been invited and what are the undrafted free agents that the Broncos brought in to compete and potentially make the roster, right? So this video, kind of boring, I'll be honest, but if you did enjoy, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel. My next video, I got a couple more planned. I want to try and upload every other day if I can help it. I've been lazy these past few days, but I've got a lot of videos planned and in the works, so hopefully we get some more consistent uploads out here. But if you did enjoy, make sure you do leave a like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace out.